Welcome to Global News Today on QuickView 24s Daily, your go-to source for the latest breaking news and in-depth global analysis. Today, the world is facing unprecedented challenges and tensions. Let's take a look at the biggest headlines shaping our world. Rising tensions between Russia and Europe. Moscow warns of EU militarization. Is a new Cold War on the horizon? Houthis' final warning. Israel has 4 days to lift the Gaza blockade. Will war erupt? A new economic alliance between Japan and the UK. How will the US react, and what does it mean for global trade? Germany paralyzed by mass strikes. Millions of passengers stranded as airports descend into chaos. Measles outbreak in the US. Cases are skyrocketing. Is this the next big public health crisis? International Women's Day. Progress and challenges in the fight for gender equality. Stay with us as we break down these critical events in detail right now. Rising tensions between Russia and Europe. Moscow warns of EU militarization. Is a new Cold War on the horizon? The European Union is accelerating its militarization. How will Russia respond? That is the question being asked across the globe following a strong warning from the Kremlin. With European leaders agreeing to increase defense spending and continuing their unwavering support for Ukraine, Moscow has made it clear that it views these actions as a direct threat. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov emphasized that Russia is closely monitoring the situation and may take necessary countermeasures to ensure its national security. Background. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine has completely reshaped Europe's security landscape, forcing EU member states to rethink their defense strategies. The EU's push to boost military spending is not just a reaction to the perceived threat from Russia. It is also an effort to reduce dependency on the United States in security matters. However, Moscow sees this as a provocative move that poses a direct challenge to Russia's national security interests. Russia's response. The Kremlin has not outlined specific countermeasures yet, but Peskov's statement signals that Russia is prepared to use any means necessary, including military actions, to safeguard its interests. Moscow has also underscored the importance of dialogue with the United States on nuclear arms control, particularly after French President Emmanuel Macron proposed placing European allies under France's nuclear umbrella. Risk of escalation. A direct military confrontation between Russia and the EU remains unlikely, but the risk of proxy conflicts and unintended incidents is growing. With both sides ramping up their military capabilities, the potential for an escalating cycle of tensions becomes increasingly real. Analysts fear that if left unchecked, this situation could lead to a new Cold War, dividing Europe and destabilizing the global order. Is the world witnessing the beginning of a new Cold War? And how far is Russia willing to go in response to the EU's militarization? Stay tuned as we continue to monitor this developing story on Global News Today. Houthis' final warning. Israel has 4 days to lift the Gaza blockade. Will war erupt? The countdown has begun. The Houthi movement has issued a stark ultimatum. Israel has just 4 days to lift the blockade on Gaza or face renewed attacks. The warning, delivered in a strongly worded statement from Houthi leaders in Yemen, signals a dangerous escalation in the already volatile Middle East. The group has vowed to resume military operations against Israel if humanitarian aid shipments are not allowed into Gaza immediately. Background. Since the start of the Gaza blockade, Israel has completely restricted humanitarian aid shipments, arguing that such measures are necessary to weaken Hamas. The Houthi movement, a powerful Iran-backed faction in Yemen, has positioned itself as a defender of Palestinians, calling the blockade a crime against humanity. This latest warning follows months of drone and missile attacks on Israel and commercial shipping routes in the Red Sea, a tactic the Houthis claim is part of their resistance against Israeli policies. Israel's response. As of now, Israel has not officially responded to Houthis' latest ultimatum. However, analysts predict that Israel is unlikely to yield to the demands, as doing so could be perceived as a weakness in the face of militant pressure. The Israeli military remains on high alert, with defense systems in place to counter any potential Houthi missile or drone strikes. Risk of escalation. If Israel refuses to lift the blockade, the Houthis are expected to follow through on their threats, potentially launching a new wave of attacks against Israeli territory. A direct military confrontation between Israel and the Houthis could pull in other regional players, further destabilizing the Middle East. Some experts warn that this crisis, if not contained, could spiral into a larger conflict, drawing in Iran, the United States, and other key actors. Will Israel call Houthis bluff, or are we on the brink of a full-scale regional war? Stay tuned as we continue to track this developing story on Global News Today. A new economic alliance between Japan and the UK. How will the US react, and what does it mean for global trade? A new economic alliance is taking shape. Japan and the UK are strengthening their trade and economic ties in a move that could shift the balance of global commerce. But how will the United States respond? Top diplomats and economic leaders from Japan and the UK have concluded high-level discussions, solidifying a strategic partnership aimed at countering economic protectionism and strengthening global supply chains. This move comes as concerns grow over rising trade barriers, supply chain disruptions, and shifting global economic policies. Background: the U.S. has recently pushed for more protectionist trade policies, prioritizing domestic manufacturing and limiting global trade agreements. Both Japan and the UK, staunch supporters of free trade, see this partnership as a way to reinforce economic stability and diversification. The Japan-UK Economic 2+2 Dialogue aims to secure critical resources, technological cooperation, and strategic economic independence. Key agreements: supply chain security, enhancing access to rare earth minerals and semiconductor production. Free trade expansion, diversifying global supply chains beyond reliance on major powers like China and the US. Technology safeguards, strengthening export control policies to prevent sensitive technologies from falling into adversarial hands. Global impact and US reaction. This alliance challenges the current US-centric economic approach, signaling a new phase of global trade competition. The Biden administration has yet to respond officially, but analysts believe the US may push for stronger bilateral trade negotiations to maintain its influence. Could this be the beginning of a new trade bloc that reshapes global commerce? Will this partnership strengthen the global economy, or will it further divide major economic powers? Stay tuned as we follow this developing story on Global News Today. Germany paralyzed by mass strikes. Millions of passengers stranded as airports descend into chaos. Germany is in turmoil. Airports across the country are shutting down as mass strikes bring travel to a standstill. What's causing this unprecedented crisis? Millions of passengers are facing severe travel disruptions as airport workers across Germany go on strike, demanding higher wages and better working conditions. This wave of industrial action comes after failed negotiations between labor unions and the German government, plunging the nation into one of the worst aviation crises in recent history. Background: the Verdi trade union, representing over 2.5 million public sector workers, is pushing for an 8% wage increase, higher bonuses, and additional paid leave. German federal and local authorities argue that such demands are financially unsustainable, leading to a deadlock. Last week, similar strikes severely disrupted domestic and international flights, costing the airline industry millions. Impact of the strike: hundreds of flights canceled, affecting travel across Frankfurt, Berlin, Munich, and Hamburg. Airline companies face mounting losses, with major carriers calling for urgent government intervention. The German economy takes a hit as freight shipments and business travel suffer major setbacks. What happens next? If a resolution is not reached soon, the strikes could extend to railways, hospitals, and public transport, worsening the situation. German authorities are under immense pressure to reach a compromise before the crisis spirals further. Could this be the beginning of a broader European labor movement demanding economic reforms? Measles outbreak in the U.S. Cases are skyrocketing. Is this the next big public health crisis? A deadly disease once thought to be under control is making a dangerous comeback. The United States is witnessing a surge in measles cases, raising concerns of a potential public health crisis. A recent outbreak of measles in the southwestern U.S. has resulted in over 200 confirmed cases and 2 fatalities, prompting emergency health advisories from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. The rapid spread of the virus is alarming experts, particularly as vaccination rates continue to decline. Background: the CDC reports 198 cases in Texas and 10 in New Mexico, with numbers rising. Measles is highly contagious, spreading through airborne droplets and remaining infectious for up to 2 hours in enclosed spaces. The virus causes fever, respiratory complications, and in severe cases pneumonia, encephalitis, or death. Why is measles making a comeback? Falling vaccination rates, misinformation, and vaccine hesitancy spiked during the COVID-19 pandemic. Gaps in herd immunity. With fewer children receiving vaccinations, outbreaks are becoming harder to contain. International travel risks. Increased global movement is fueling the spread of the virus across borders. What can be done? Public health officials urge immediate action, calling for stronger vaccination campaigns. The CDC is monitoring the outbreak closely and warning travelers ahead of the upcoming spring and summer holidays. Could this outbreak escalate into a nationwide health emergency? Will the U.S. be able to contain this outbreak before it spirals out of control? Keep watching Global News Today for the latest updates. International Women's Day. Progress and challenges in the fight for gender equality. Today we celebrate International Women's Day, a moment to honor the achievements of women worldwide while acknowledging the challenges that still remain in the fight for gender equality. This year's theme, Empowerment for All, Achieving True Equality, serves as a reminder of the ongoing efforts to create a fairer, more inclusive society. Key achievements. Education. Girls' school enrollment rates have significantly increased worldwide, improving literacy and future job opportunities. Healthcare. Maternal mortality rates have dropped thanks to better medical access and awareness programs. Political representation. More women are holding leadership positions in governments and corporations than ever before. Challenges that remain. Violence against women. 1 in 3 women in the EU still faces physical or sexual violence. Wage gap. Women continue to earn less than men, with slow progress toward economic parity. Leadership inequality. Women remain underrepresented in executive positions and political leadership. Call to action. Promote women's rights globally, ensuring access to education, healthcare, and protection from violence. Strengthen gender equality policies, breaking down barriers in workplaces and governments. Empower women and girls, ensuring they have control over their lives and futures. What steps can we take to create a world where gender equality is truly achieved? Join the conversation and stay with Global News Today for continued coverage on this important issue. Stay with us as we break down these critical events in detail right now. That wraps up today's edition of Global News Today. What's next for Russia and Europe? Will Israel yield to Houthis' pressure? And can the U.S. contain the measles outbreak before it turns into a global crisis? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to QuickView 24s daily for real-time updates on the most important global stories. Spread the word. Share this video with friends and family so they stay informed too.